Hi, I'm Jennifer from Shabby Fabrics. Just look at this beautiful quilt behind me called a Tennessee Waltz. I've absolutely fell in love with the fabric and wanted to do something almost kind of reproduction, vintage era. And we have the Peaky and Spike template set from Perfect Patchwork Template System by Marty Michelle. And between this fabric collection and that template set, and this quilt design, it just seemed to marry up all together and produce the quilt that you see behind me that looks complicated and looks curved, but it's not. And I think that's what I find the most mysterious about this particular quilt is at first glance it appears to be curves. Don't run for the hills. There are no curves in here. You will not believe how simple this project is. This is again the Tennessee Waltz. We'll have the specifics for the amount of fabrics that you need, inner borders, outer borders. Go to our homepage, Shabby Fabrics, at the bottom, free downloads. Click on that if you're looking for the Tennessee Waltz quilt, and that'll have all those specifics there for you. But the main thing that I wanted to go over with you today is how to make the two blocks. Now there's two blocks in this quilt that make up the entire front of the quilt top besides the borders. This is a really historical block from the 1840s. It's called the 5440 or Fight. It was the James Polk was president. He wanted the Oregon boundary line to be at a certain latitude. It didn't end up being that, as it turns out, but this block was named 5440 or Fight of all things. And this is basically just a variation on a snowball block. So let's get started. You'll need the Peaky and Spike. Now, you would think that this would be the Peaky and this would be the Spike. And Marty Michelle, having the humor that she has, are actually just the opposite. So this is the actual Spike and this is the Peaky. So not sure how that came to be, but that's what we're doing today. You will need, of course, to choose your fabrics. These are the instructions that, by the way, come with the template set. That's great, and you can always use the templates to do other projects as well. I will be guiding you into this block. You'll be using the 3-inch line on both the Peaky and Spike. This template has multiple sizes ranging from 1 all the way up to 6. So we'll be using the 3 today, and I'm going to be using my spinning mat for safety. The first thing we'll be doing is cutting out this part of our block, the darkest blue. Because those two need to be reflected, it's very important that either the fabrics are wrong sides together or right sides together, but not stacked right side, not stacked like this. That will not work. It will give you 2 of those and you need those to be reflected. So again, just leave your fabric folded in half. And we've cut a 3-inch strip to start with. Then I'm going to, so you can naturally see that this part starts with here. So if you can't remember which one to start with, you can see this delta obviously belongs with this, and this part belongs with this template. So we've cut our strip to 3 inches. We will simply put our template on the 3-inch line there. And I'm going to make a cut here. This is why I love the spinning mat. I don't have to disturb anything. I'm not cutting under my arm. It's much safer and accurate. Those are 2 words I like a lot. Now, before I go on, well, actually, let me go on and I'm going to come back to it. Notice this little point here on my. I'm going to lift this up just to show it to you. This is what makes Marty Michelle's templates so unique. These are what's called engineer corners. It makes the blocks, the pieces just click together like a puzzle. You'll see as we go on what I mean, but we'll go back and we will clip those corners using our template here. Now to move on and keep going, we will simply flip that. You see how I did that? I was initially in this orientation. Now I'll flip that 180 degrees, go to put that on my 3-inch line, and I will just begin cutting. Oh, move just a little bit, but notice I didn't move the fabric. It's when I begin to move fabric and lift it up, that's when things begin to shift. Okay, so you would obviously just keep moving this all the way down until you have everything cut. Now this engineered corner bit, what do we do about that? Well, you've got the engineered corners, which I cut here, but what about those two corners? What you'll do with that is notice how on my template, I do have engineered corners, I just need to go get them. So I will lay this back on top of my two fabrics, shift it just a touch, and I'm just going to pull that back until it just sits right on top of it. Then I'm going to go get that corner right there, and I'm just going to cut that off. Rotate my mat, I'm going to slide that over, and again, see how it just fits right over top of that, holding that in position, and I'm going to go get that engineered corner. So those two are ready to go. That's the first part, as you can see, of this aspect of the block. Now we'll be working with the other template and our other fabric. Just like the other one, we cut these to 3 inches, and this is project specific, of course. That's to make the quilt behind us. You could be making those blocks larger, and simply by using the 4 or 5 or even 6 and make the block significantly bigger. So you don't necessarily need to make more blocks, just make the blocks bigger and use the higher numbers on both the templates. Just like we did before, we're going to go ahead and place that 3 directly there, and notice my engineer corner. See how cool it is to cut the strip ahead of time? It just fits. So I'm going to set that on there. Sometimes when I use the spinning mat, when it hangs off the edge, I just kind of fold it over. It just kind of travels with me and I move it out of the way. All right, and we will go get the engineer corner in just a bit. And again, here, 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 just keep cutting. Engineer corner, let's go get that because that's really important to us. We're going to just move this over till it fits exactly over our fabric. Here and there. If you've ever worked with triangles, sometimes it's a little confusing actually when you're trying to piece the sides together because it doesn't lay out the way that non-triangles do. If you've ever worked with triangles, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But watch how these engineer corners take the mystery out of triangles because they just click together. So you can see these are my three pieces, right, that make up this part. Because this has the engineer corners, I don't wonder. Look at that. It fits perfectly. Now let's take this to the sewing machine. Of course, you're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance as you would expect. And I might even just put one little pin in there, although it's probably not even really necessary. It's just not going to go anywhere. Let's take that there. So a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, I like to press away from my center. Whatever you do, do it the same throughout the whole quilt. This has seemed to work well for me, is just to press away. You can always set the seam. Sometimes I forget to do that. And I'm just going to press away, finger pressing first, and then I just let that sit on there for a moment. Now we'll go and let's get the other side of that. So again, I always like to go back and get a visual. Am I setting this up right? Yes. Look how it just fits in that little notch. It just fits. I love stuff that just fits. Let's go sew that. Get everything all lined up. Scissors here. If you don't have these easy cut scissors, oh, just get a pair. They're wonderfully sharp. They're curved at the tip. It helps reduce the likelihood of you kind of jamming your scissors into your fabric and potentially putting a hole in it. And I will again now go ahead, set that seam, and finger press to the outside gently. And I'm just going to let that iron sit there for a bit. So of course, for each of the 54, 40 or fight blocks, you'll make 4 of those. The center is just a square, and I think that's a 3.5 inch square. Yeah, and those measurements will be online. So that's this part of it. And look how just precise it is using the template with the engineer corners. For the 4 patch in the corner, strip piecing works great. If you've never strip pieced, there's 2 ways to do this. You could cut all these into little squares, and that's a lot of pieces running around your sewing table. Or you take long strips, sewing them together side by side, such as this. These are 2-inch wide strips. You can either press the seams to one side or open. Again, whatever you decide to do with this block, do the same for all the blocks throughout the quilt. These were just pressed to one side. Now we will go to our mat. These were cut to 2. I don't have a ruler handy, but I've got lines on so I don't really need to have a ruler because I have this. And I'll cut another one. And you're cutting these to 2. Whatever your strips were cut to is the size, once they're pieced together, that you cut the units to. So you simply turn those nest beautifully because they do have opposing seams. We'll take that to the sewing machine. Get everything lined up here. Oh, I got a little mess here. See, that happens to me too. All right, I like to press these open at this point because I've got a lot of bulk going already, especially with the seams pressed to the sides. So now that they're joined, I'm going to go ahead and I want to press that seam open. Of course, you'll make 4 of those for each of the 54 or fight blocks, 54, 40 or fight blocks. You'll make 4 corners. So you've got your 4 corners plus your center, and then the piecing is just logical. You'll lay it out. I always recommend how easy this would be to have this go in the wrong direction, right? Go ahead and lay your block out first. Get that visual picture. Are these in the corner where they're supposed to be? Because you could see how that would be very easy to mess that up. Lay it out, and then you'll simply sew the top row together. You can press the seams to the outside or open as you prefer. But if you do press to the outside, do the middle row to the inside and the bottom row to the outside. Again, so you'll have interlocking seams. Top row, looks like we pressed the seams away from the center. Middle row, seams went toward the center and bottom was toward the outside. These 2 rows together, press, sew and press, same. And now you've got your block. So that's all there is to making the 54, 40 or fight block using the template set. Let's go on to the other block, which really isn't a snowball, but it's kind of like a snowball block. So let's just move right into that one. Definitely, you do not need a template set. However, we found a really cool tool, and you may have seen me use these before, the star singles. Let's just break down this block. First off, this is nothing more than half square triangle right here. This is just a square, and same here. So you can make, I've recorded a video already on half square triangles, so you can watch that. Or you can use a product that we have called Star Singles, which I love. And I'll show you how those work. With Star Singles, you simply get the two fabrics that you want to make up that half square triangle. You will follow the instructions on the Star Single paper, and this simply tells you cut 8-inch squares of fabric. Consequently, you want to always choose the Star Single paper for the finished size of your half square triangle unit. So because these were finishing at 3 and this is going to finish at 3, you would get the 3-inch Star Single papers. So I just want to mention that. And these come in a variety of sizes. Cut 8-inch squares of fabric, place two squares, right sides together, pin the paper on top. You sew on the dashed lines and you cut out on the solid lines. Now we went ahead and sewn that. So at this point, all you would do is bring out a ruler and you'll simply cut that apart. And I want to show you just how precise these are using the Star Singles. Of course, if you don't want to use the papers, you can always use your favorite method for making half square triangle units. And again, if you don't have a favorite method, I've recorded that video. And just subscribe to our YouTube channel while you're at it so you never do miss any of our DIY or quilting videos. I'm getting real close to being able to show you how precise these are using the Star Singles. So we're getting real close here. And consequently, when you cut out on the solid line, it doesn't really matter where you start. Just make sure you're only cutting on the solid lines, as the dashed lines are where your thread is. So another thing I want to mention, guys, I'm always trying to mention stuff to you because I've made just about every mistake that you can make in quilting, and I'm sure more to come. And I'm trying to help you be successful by telling you where I've made mistakes. Before I realized with Star Singles that you peel this paper off, I had the normal stitch length. And as I tore the paper off, it kind of unseated my threads and it made it kind of wonky. So if you are going to be using the Star Single paper, shorten your stitch length so you have more stitches per inch. So when you do peel off the paper, as I'm about to do, it doesn't weaken any of the threads that are holding your half square triangle unit together. So of course you see me just peel off the paper, and let's take this to our pressing mat. And it's just it's so wonderful that I didn't have to draw the line and sew on the other side of the line. Let's just give that a press. And there you have your half square triangle unit. And of course you can just trim off your little dog ears. Wonderful, wonderful tool. So be sure to get the Star Singles and get them in multiple sizes. You know, if you want to make a pinwheel quilt, they're just wonderful to have on hand for the simplest designs or complex. So let's put that aside for now. That's how you can make a half square triangle unit using the Star Singles. And then once you have that done, for the 4 corners, of course, let's just bring out that whole block so you can kind of just see what makes up that whole block. You've got your corners, which we just made 1, right? And each Star Single makes 8. So you actually get 2 blocks, 2 of those blocks out of 1 Star Single. And then you have just I guess we just need to get 1 more here, and that'll be our block. And these, of course, are just squares, and those measurements will be on the download. And just as before, you will sew that top row together, pressing seams to the outsides, middle row together, pressing seams toward the center, and bottom row, pressing seams to the outside. And again, top row to the middle row to the bottom. And let's just press this out real quick so you can see the entire block. It's really a very simple thing to make this variation on the snowball block. And then we have this fabric to finish our block up, and then you would just obviously sew everything together. And as you can see, you're simply now sewing the blocks together left to right, top to bottom, and adding your inner borders and outer borders. So that's all there is to making this what looks like a complicated curved quilt using the Peaky and Spike template from Shabby Fabrics.